Hello, everyone. This is your favorite voice of business psychology, armed with research, personal experiences, and a passion to understand the nuances of rapidly evolving workplace dynamics. I am your host, Kritika Kashyap, a management psychologist. Today, we are in for a treat. Allow me to introduce Sakshi. And trust me when I say her accolades could take up our whole show. Winner of 2022 Dyna Award, Sakshi stands tall as the world's first UNESCO kindness leader, the brain behind Project LEAP. She is fervently driving change towards Sustainable Development Goal 4, that is, inclusive and equitable quality education. Now, though she is making waves in the UK as an occupational psychologist and working in the ESG or sustainable sphere, her roots trace back to India. But what's cool? She beautifully merges Indian psychology into her change sessions. With a rich history of advising AI based startups, owning to her own 3 year entrepreneurial journey, she is quite a powerhouse.
Hello, Sakshi. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Psyche and Success, the Gen Z edition.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to talk to you every time I meet you.
I have been waiting for this podcast because, it has been a long conversation, and I'm so excited to hear about all the social causes that you have been working on, your entrepreneurial journey, your working with the MNCs, because it has been really, I personally admire them. So, why don't you start with sharing and introducing yourself with the listeners?
Sure. Um, so I always say this to people that I know or want to give a different story to than your usual. This is who I am. This is what I do.
Yeah.
I say I'm a salsa dancer
Oh.
who's now turned into who's now turned into an psychologist
that,
and then became something in the middle of those two. So I'm still dancing
that,
on the
well,
tunes, but doing
that's
something
amazing.
else.
I did not know about your salsa dancing. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people did not know, including my family.
Okay.
So I was, it's a funny story, but actually I was in grade seven, so very young, so 13, 14 years old, is that
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
growing up in India, and my father would like drop me to Bharatnatyam classes in a big dance
Oh,
academy in Delhi. And then I
okay.
would just sneak to like the basement where the salsa was happening. And I had learned salsa for 7 years. And my all this time, my dad was like,
Oh
she's doing
my
Bharatnatyam. Like he was so
God.
proud. And yeah,
That's
and then
such a bold move, Sakshi. I had no idea about it.
bold, crazy. I don't know, something in the middle of that, right? And so for 7 years he thought I was doing that. 7 years later, there was a
By
showcase.
the way, does he know now
He
that
knows
you have
he
had
found out on a
drinks also?
podcast. He found out on a podcast 2 or 3 years ago.
Did
And
he confront with you, or you
he
confront?
did. So basically, when I was doing that salsa dancing, right, like seven
Mhm.
years later, we did a showcase. We put together a showcase, and everybody
Yeah.
could like invite their family members.
Hmm.
And I was really young,
Yeah.
so my tutors had to sort of check in with me, and they were like, "Look, this is the kind of dance where
Mm.
you have to." People touch each other's waist, and are you comfortable? Like you're quite
Mm.
young, and I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. I want to learn it. So for 7 years, I did
Yeah.
that knowing full well that my father wouldn't be
Oh
okay
my
with
God.
it, right? So, and then he came to this showcase very proud, thinking, oh, she'll
Oh
do
my
Bharatnatyam.
God.
Like he had his phone, like
That
his
was
phone
how
ready.
you.
Not phone, he
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a video
That
camera.
was how it unfolded to
Yeah,
him. My God.
yeah, that's how he was like, and he got up and left middle of the show. Like when I
How
actually started doing the dance, he's like,
was he really mad?
he didn't speak to me for a long time, like
Shit.
years, like long time meaning years. And
Okay.
then I also chose to take psychology that year. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take
I
psychology.
can
So I was
understand
like,
what my that
yeah,
psychology is right now.
yeah, right. So it was insane. And then years later, I'd moved to the UK. I wasn't living with him anymore, and he just kind of wanted to reconnect. So he started like looking for some podcast that I
Yeah.
was doing. And my brother
Hmm.
sent some to him. And in one of the podcasts he was listening to about me, I was telling them how I was lying to my parents and traveling alone all over India. And I was training to be a salsa dancer. And then my father calls me like, right. Oh,
That's a lot to take for a
right.
father.
I was like,
But I mean,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like you have to live your life, and as long as you're not doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
it always a good learning.
Even like the wrong and the right, right? Like who tells you that? Like
Hmm.
our parents give us the values, but then
Hmm.
there's also like the messaging you're getting from the outside world of you need to be your own person, especially when we were growing up, right? Like we
Hmm.
have to be our own person and we have to learn things our own way.
Right.
And actually all of that has made me who I am.
Hmm.
Like all that solo traveling all over India. I started doing that when I was 17,
Wow.
right? And my friends, I used to stay at my friend's
Hmm.
place and sneak a backpack in to their house and then travel from their house and then come back to theirs so that I didn't have to tell my
Oh
parents I'm
my
going
God.
alone. And my friends' places became my places to
Hmm.
crash all the time, and I would call upon them if something, and a lot of things went
Hmm.
wrong when I was
Yeah.
traveling alone, right, in India, and a lot of good things happened as well. So in the bad times, I used to call upon my friends, and they used to be the people who would like support me or buy me my
Okay.
ticket or send me some money. And I was like
Oh.
painting graffitis in India
Hmm.
to stay in hostels in
Wow.
exchange. Like I had no money to travel. And I was like on a motorbike sometimes and I was on a cycle sometimes. Like it was crazy, like just the amount of things that happened. But
There's so many elements to unfold of yours. I'm loving this.
It's like an onion. Somebody said that to me a few years ago. You're like an onion, and we can keep peeling the layers back, and it doesn't end. And I'm like, but that's true for every human being, right? It's just that some of us are more candid about it than the others. But every single person I've met has many layers as an onion. Some are just not comfortable sharing that on a podcast.
I'm glad that you are. Oh,
Yeah, fair enough.
so yes. Anyway, continue with what you're
Hmm.
passionate about, your social causes that you've been working on,
Yeah.
your journey basically.
Yeah. Well, when I was in school,
Hmm.
right, I'd taken like psychology, as I
Hmm.
said, and then another subject we had was geography, and I was really, just to put it out there, I was really good at geography.
Okay.
Like, I was the best in geography, like the best. I have to say that out. Like, I'm so salty about the fact that I never chose that as a career direction. I should have,
Okay.
but at that time, psychology was rebellious enough. So we had geography, and one of the assignments was with our class
Hmm.
teacher to go to some of the areas around that were some of the slum
Okay.
areas. And we were doing a survey around there. So we came out of the survey, a bunch of 12 of us,
Hmm.
and we thought we had done a great
Yeah. Yeah.
job, right? We were interacting with people, we were empathizing with them, we were like talking to them, and we came out and our teacher was angry
Oh,
at us. She was like, you
really?
guys were the worst, like we're never gonna go back in again. And we're like, what, why? And she goes, because you went into somebody's home and acted like you are the savior and acted like you're better than them, and
Okay.
you're there to like save them of something. She's like, what if somebody comes
Okay.
to your home and does that to you?
Hmm.
You would be like, is my home not good enough? Right? So even if
Hmm.
we know that those conditions that they live in are
Hmm.
not, the best for hygiene or sanitation, you don't make a
Okay.
person feel like their home isn't
Yeah.
adequate enough. And that's
Hmm.
what you guys just did, right? In the way you were interacting with them. And that was like, I remember that incident so clearly. It was right outside, like the temple. And so
Hmm.
the temple faced the sort of area of these
Hmm.
housings. And we were right in the middle. And I still remember it. And that stuck with me because I was like, oh my God, like a lot of us just go out into the world trying to help other people, but we just don't
Yeah,
know how.
that's true.
And so we end up creating more
Hmm.
evil
Hmm.
than good. And we're still sort of doing that, right? So I joined, like in my college, I started joining like social causes, and I did that not because I was
Hmm.
philanthropic or something. I did it because every other
Right.
teenager was doing it, right? They were joining like
Yeah.
some social cause. So honestly, I did not start it with I'm a good person at heart. I did not.
Hmm.
And but when I joined, I realized that a lot of people, including myself, were going to like these
Hmm.
schools trying to teach kids without
Right.
knowing shit
Yes.
ourselves. Like, what did we know,
That
right?
is
What who are we to teach anybody? And we right? And a lot of times,
yes.
like I would see people teaching the kid the wrong
Okay.
thing, right? About like how to handle
Right.
themselves. Like, actually,
Mm.
we need to do something about it because can you imagine volunteers are the only people who are genuinely trying to save the planet
Mm.
without any
Right.
foul intentions apart from we are trying to
Mm.
do it for our own consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Every other person, including employees, whether or not people like to hear
Mm.
it, are doing something for the world, good or bad,
Of
for
course.
money, for
Of course.
recognition, for prestige, for survival, right? So we
Hmm.
spend so much money in the learning and development of
Mm.
employees who are actually probably ruining the planet than helping it. But we
Mm.
spend no money, no effort on volunteers who actually are saving the
Yeah.
planet and are
That's the
doing
truth.
it for the sort of greater good. Um, and that's why I started Project Leap.
Mm-hmm.
I was 17 years old at that time. I just started traveling. I had just sort of started this volunteering and all that. And I was like,
Okay.
I came home, it was
Mm-hmm.
1st of July. We had done like a big event. I was working with Rotary Foundation. We
All
used to
right.
organize like blood donation camps. We used to organize like clean sanitation camps.
Mm-hmm.
We used to organize organ donation camps. So I'd done a lot of different causes by then.
Mm-hmm.
Already by the age of 17, I was just like, I was gonna turn 18 in a month or something, right? It was no, not in a month, a few months. It was July. And so I came home, took a notepad out, wrote down what I wanted to do and wanted to change, gave it a
Okay.
name called LEAP. It stood for literacy, empowerment, ability, and participation. Created like random posters on Word, which came out terrible. But at that time, like,
It's always
right.
a start. There's always a start.
That time they were the best. I remember going to Kamla Nagar,
Mm.
finding a printing shop, sitting down with the printer, printing loads of them. And I started going
Yeah.
around University of Delhi campus. And by then I had
Mm-hmm.
joined university as well. I'd graduated from school. Uh, I started going around University of Delhi campus, standing up in parks or like Connaught Place and whatever, and just like
Okay.
telling people to like
Oh
come
my
come hear what I
God.
had to say
Wow.
and be like, this is what I want to do. And I had 300 people join me, like young people,
That's
uh,
amazing.
by by end of August.
Mm.
Like I had 300
That's
people,
amazing.
and then I was like,
That shows me how beautiful, like people, how you said there were young people joining you, joining your hands with the cause. That really shows the kind of values and the young generation really caring about the causes and how can we make the place where we live better than it is.
yeah,
And that's incredible.
yeah. Absolutely. And you know what? Like, I was very clear. Like, a lot of the disorganized social service
Mm-hmm.
sector works like this in India is to get volunteers in,
Yeah.
you lure them in, right? So you give them certificates, or you give them
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like some food vouchers or whatever. I was very clear. You're not gonna get any of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no certificates going to be issued. There is no like hand holding. This is going to be about you for me. For me, it's about you. I will invest in your
Right.
training. I will find people who can train us in our skills. And then you go out and help other people get the right education that they
Amazing.
deserve.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the model. So you're in or you're out. And people
Hmm.
were in. People really wanted to help, as you said, right? And so we had 100% volunteer retention rate right up until COVID.
Wow.
Nobody left.
That says a lot. Also about the employee retention challenge that has been an
Right?
ongoing problem in the world.
Right?
That's
And I'm
tremendous,
just
yeah.
like, if I could speak to each and every one of those 300 people
Mm-hmm.
and ask them, I literally used to ask my volunteers, okay, what do you want to do in life, right?
Hmm.
And they would be like, oh, I want to be in marketing. You want to be in marketing? You go handle our social media from now on.
Mm.
That's it. And then we'll find people who can help you, right? Or who can give you the skills or who can train you. What do you want to do? You want to be a psychologist, right? You take care of our students from now
Right.
on and send them to the right counselors. You don't counsel
Hmm.
them, but you send them to the right counselors, right? And it was about what do you want to do because I realized that this is not a
Hmm.
career for them and this is not their whole lives. This is a stepping
Right.
stone into something. And so if I could do that for a 300 people
Hmm.
volunteer group, organizations are 300 people as well, that's when the
Yeah.
scale up starts happening. what is the like what is stopping you from saying that you don't want people to be in your company your
Mm,
whole life? You don't want that, right? I think people like organizations love the idea of retention rates, and they're like, oh, but like people have been here 37 years. That's bad.
the numbers, big data and
Literally, like, you're
analytics.
telling me that a person has been here 37 years? I don't like that. Either
Yeah.
you are holding them to something, and
Mm,
not giving them sort of progression enough that they can move out, or
yeah.
that person doesn't know their worth,
Mm,
right? You can
absolutely.
have an awesome company culture, which I very much doubt any organization in the world has, like 100% awesome company culture,
Hmm.
and then have people stay 37 years.
That's because
That's not
as
okay.
human, we are agile creatures. We tend to change with every phase, and
Yeah,
it's astonishing for me as well when I hear people from older generations staying 30 years all their life in one company. And I'm like, how can you
yeah,
do that? Even I have
yeah.
changed careers.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's the fact that they craved stability, which they never had, right? So their
Hmm.
struggles growing up
Right.
was about make was sort of equating stability with success. And I think
Hmm.
we grew up in a generation where we equated disruption with success. The more disruptive you are, the
Yeah.
more edgy you are, the more different you are, the more out of the box you are, that's success. I think what
Hmm.
people forgot was, so a lot of people say this word to me, right? They're like, you're so rebellious. And I'm like, my rebellion is not
Hmm.
my luxury. My rebellion is my survival tactic. So
Right.
don't commend me for being rebellious. Like I had to
Hmm.
do that to survive. And that is
Absolutely.
true for a lot of communities, right?
Yeah.
Communities
Yeah.
aren't rebelling because they want to be edgy. Communities are rebelling because
Hmm.
that's just the way of life, because the systems that these stable human beings created
Hmm.
for us just don't work anymore,
Yeah.
because they also created a lot of problems with it,
Absolutely.
right?
Because
So you're telling
yeah,
me, it's a weird
yeah,
space
yeah.
to be
So
in.
even the researchers have shown that how stable the companies were earlier, with all
Yeah,
their pensions and things, the retirement plans. Now, even getting the
yeah,
health benefits, that takes like years for a company, for an employee to get the health
yeah,
benefits. And how can you even assume or
yeah.
expect an employee of yours to be loyal to you or to not work or to not be rebellious for its own survival?
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's not even rebellion. I think it's the idea that
Hmm.
we need multiple jobs to survive now, right? Everybody is either doing two or three different
Right.
jobs as sources of income, not
Mm-hmm.
full-time jobs, but like have two or three sources of
Hmm.
income,
That
or
is
they're
true.
thinking about getting two or three sources of income, right? That is because it is
Hmm.
about sustaining a livelihood and a lifestyle for most people, right? For some people,
Mm-hmm.
for maximum population of this world, it is about sustaining a livelihood. And then there are some
That is true.
privileged people for whom it is about sustaining a
Absolutely.
lifestyle, right? But you need two or three sources of income. So this kind of behavior of having two or three sources of income, having
Mm-hmm.
your own personal brand outside of your company, having a life outside of the company is actually seen as being a troublemaker, because you're volatile, you're not stable, you're not fitting into the mold,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do things a certain way, and the systems don't like
Yeah.
that. So they love to hire us,
Hmm.
right? When we sit for interviews, Gen Z, when we sit for interviews, right, we've already sort of built a charity or done communications or are, cool and edgy in our certain ways, have created some kind of impact. Or, maybe haven't created an impact, but very strongly feel about a cause, right? We are very empowered about a certain topic that we grew up with. And so organizations love us for that. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, we have never seen somebody, do this. And then they bring you in, but the expectation is you leave it at the door, please.
Oh my God. Okay. Can you
Right?
talk about
You
your experience a bit more about it?
absolutely. I think it is. So for example, when I interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was brown in a brown country.
Right.
Okay, I was growing up in
Yeah.
India and I was brown, so there was a lot of colorism and there was a lot of please take, like I literally used to get pills to get
Oh
whiter.
shit.
That's the extent of how
That's
how bad it was, and
that's
like
the worst thing that
multiple
I can
instances.
imagine of.
Yeah, multiple things.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of instances, and so this thing became quite close to my
Hmm.
heart. I wrote a research paper when I was in
All
first year
right.
college about it, and then I started working with a teacher who used to rewrite
Okay.
nursery rhymes So it's not Baba Black Sheep, it's Baba whatever sheep.
Mm,
It's green sheep, you know. It's not, why is it black sheep, right? So she was like rewriting these nursery rhymes because that's when the stereotypes start. And it was a huge issue for me. I knew it was a huge issue for a lot of my friends and people I did not know. So I became a very
mm-hmm,
active campaigner about it in whatever capacity I had as a 18-year-old, whatever. Um, and and then a lot of things happen, you know, with the charity, with setting up Project Leap and setting up like
mm-hmm.
my startup and all. So
Yeah.
when I interviewed for jobs, they loved it.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we can't believe we've done so much, right? But when you
Okay.
come in, it is about, yeah, but forget that. We you know, like, don't bring your uniqueness, don't bring your communication style,
Mm,
don't bring your sense of urgency, because that's not how it operates. That's not how the system, that's not what the
mm.
system likes. When I see the system, I mean an organizational system, like the way
Right.
they manage knowledge in the system. Who's telling who what to
Mm-hmm.
do, who is learning
Yeah.
from who, right? It's always one directional if you're younger. You're learning instead of giving anything back. Nobody can learn from you because apparently, what do you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's about how do they manage performance and how do they, what is the criteria for performance management, right? They're like, oh, like, we don't value people who show a unique sort of communication style, or we don't sort
Mm,
of like people who are outgoing,
right.
entrepreneurial. No, you have to, this is the contribution guide, because this is what was set up 50 years ago when people did not come in with these kind of disruptive experiences
Hmm.
already. And so it is that, it is as simple as the systems don't credit us for who we are, but they like to hire us for who we are.
Okay.
And that creates, it's very well researched actually. It's called
Hmm.
occupational reality shock. You get shockwaves across your body when you enter an organization because your expectation doesn't match the reality. And these are physical and mental shock waves. These are physical and mental shock waves that
Hmm.
actually
That's very
signal to your
interesting.
body that the reality isn't matching up, right? And I have a
Oh.
friend named Ernst Dwaka in University of Ghana. He's done a lot of research on it, right? And he says to me, he says, Sakshi, do you know, like, a lot of people talk about Africa and Ghana in the context of corruption and violence and all that, right? And he's like, you know, when kids grow up,
Mm,
they want to be
hmm.
doctors or nurses or whatever because they've seen other people do that,
Hmm.
right? They don't think
Yeah.
about whether they have the skills or the
Hmm.
personality to be a doctor or a nurse or an accountant or a pilot or whatever. They just do it, right? And that's what
Hmm.
they've been told their whole lives. That's how you get money. That's how you support your
Yeah.
family. Once they enter the profession, they realize actually you need people skills, or
Hmm.
you need resilience, or you need like time management, and they don't have that. And so they're not earning as much as they could, and the congruence
Hmm.
doesn't exist. The shock of the job is too much. That makes them open to corruption,
Hmm.
open to taking bribes, open to
Hmm.
being the perpetuator and the victim of domestic or violence at workplace or harassment at workplace, because
Oh.
your mind and body is going through the shock of what actually just happened to me, right? And
Hmm.
you there also have
Right.
the expectation of your job and your coworkers to do a good
Hmm.
job because you were so good, and you came in as
Hmm.
a sort of very amazing human being who's accomplished so much, and also by your
Hmm.
family because they were like, oh, you did so much already in your life, so why aren't you earning enough yet, and why aren't you
Yeah.
progressing, and why aren't you promoting, and why aren't you enjoying it? And
Yeah.
we thought you would always do great, right? But you're not
Yeah.
doing great because there was a big shock wave that nobody prepared you for.
Yeah. That's. I had no idea. I had not read about such a thing, and that's so real in the world because now when I think about it, I have seen it myself happening. I mean, to some degree, I would say to me as well, and a lot of my friends, a
Mm.
lot of my knowns around. And this is something that we do not first off know about it. We are not aware about it at all,
Mm.
and it has not been talked about. It has not been known at all. And thank you for bringing this up and sharing it with our listeners because now we'll be able to make more sense about what really is happening within ourselves, what we always talk about well being in the workplace and having our personal lives and professional lives. And so it really makes a lot of sense. And coming from an organization psychologist yourself, it's tremendous.
Well, I'm not an I'm an organizational psychologist, but a practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in no capacity, sort of have a PhD or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Although that may be coming in certain years. But you know, it is true that that this reality shock, you have to be very ignorant, and that is a defense
Mm-hmm.
mechanism sometimes for people, but you have to be very ignorant to ignore the
Mm-hmm.
signs, right? Some people, and I felt this way, right? I was like, why is it that everybody else is just doing fine and I am having all
Yeah.
these issues, right? Why is it that I
Hmm.
can't take the bullshit anymore, but everybody else is okay with it? Is it me? And I think you have to be a
Hmm.
certain level of ignorant, um, like I say,
Right.
even as a defense mechanism for your own survival and safety, to say, I am fine with it.
Hmm.
Like I'll listen to it and I'll
Hmm.
deal with it, and you'll keep going on. Um,
Hmm.
Unfortunately, if you're brown, a woman in a different country, rebellious, as people call me, and a generalist who has a lot of variety of experiences, that's not an option. You don't just sit in and listen.
Hmm.
You take it to your heart, you take it to your mind, and you say,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
actually, sorry, but I'm not willing to let go
Hmm.
of my personality, identity, culture, history, background, experiences, heuristics, right?
Of
To just
course.
fit in.
Why should one?
And I think that's a key difference, right? Is there's a lot of
Yeah.
people like me. Um,
Hmm.
uh, I won't say Gen Z because I'm 1997, so I am Gen Z
Hmm.
technically, but I'm in the middle, right? Like this is this
Hmm.
I'm on the fence,
Right.
and I think the way
Yeah.
I categorize this generational difference is people who grew up with the message that world is ending, right? That was your millennials also.
Hmm.
But then Gen Z grew up with the
Yeah.
message world is ending. You need to do something about it. You need to be bold. You need to have a sense of
Hmm.
urgency. What are you doing? What is your cause? What do you care about? That was the key difference, right?
Right.
So our actions
Hmm.
show the same thing. Our actions have a sense of urgency, a sense of boldness, and sense of a
Hmm.
non-hierarchical nature in there because we were always told that's
Yeah.
what we need to do to get shit done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because in the workplace, people are everybody, like you said, people are facing these things. It's just the younger generation who are actually vocal about it, and that's about it. That's the difference because they see that this is the ending. I mean, if it goes any further, there's
yeah,
there's no way further. This will be the
yeah,
end. So
yeah,
if we do not speak, that's the end.
yeah.
Who is going to if we
That
don't? Uh, Older
literally,
generations
it
do
is the
not.
end. And it's so funny, right? Like how everybody in the organization, like especially like some of these, I don't know who creates these reports, but people are like, oh, like 52% of the like young people are leaving the workforce to become influencers. I'm like, excuse me,
All right.
not all of us want to be TikTokers or influencers or travel around the world. Like, I would love to travel around the world as a full-time job, but actually, I don't. I wouldn't love it because
Mm-hmm.
it would become my job. So, I want to be in the workplace. I want to work. I want
Mm-hmm.
to be in an organization. I want to do those things. And I bet other people do as well, right? Other young people
Right.
also want to do that. We, not
Mm,
all of us want to
absolutely.
be influencers, but you're not making it easy for us, right? The systems
No.
don't allow us to do that, and that's why we are quitting, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
either you bring us in and you say that the
Mm-hmm.
systems will support you, or the systems will not support you. It's like that, right? And it's the
Hmm.
gray
Hmm.
area between
That is
that
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 is
we are
true. So,
trying to explore.
I would want to ask from your personal experience that how have you been managing this problem of ORS and your personal well-being because you because I see you as a passionate person and you really care
Mm,
and you're empathetic towards people around you, your surroundings. So how have you been able to manage and because it's for a lot of
mm,
listeners like us who are like you who are facing the same issues in life. How have you been coping up and working through these
mm.
challenges, working on your well-being, your work-life balance?
Um, I did what I know best is talking.
Mm,
Um, I
yeah.
I was always vocal about what I'm going through, right? Like
Hmm.
whether it is with my friends or my family or my cousins or my
Mm-hmm.
brother or my colleagues at work, I always told them, this is giving me anxiety and
Mm.
I've never been an anxious person, or this is making me cry every day,
Mm.
right? What what it did was, for some people, it created an image that Sakshi is vulnerable.
Mm.
And you know what? If that's how you feel about me, I'm okay with it. Like, I'll bear the consequences of it later on, because whoever said organizations allow you to be vulnerable was lying to your face. There's no space for vulnerability in organizations. But you can choose to be vulnerable and then you bear the
Okay.
consequences, which I will in a while. Um, the second thing I did was talk to people who who have been,
Mm-hmm.
in mid to senior level positions like myself,
Mm.
and look like me. And hearing their experiences did two things. One, it
Mm.
validated that what I'm going through, I'm not the only one and it's not my fault.
Right.
And two, I need to do something about it. For me, and everybody has their way of dealing with things. For me, the best way to deal with something that I feel
Mm-hmm.
so personally involved in is doing an action, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
I felt that I was bullied because of my skin
Mm.
tone, I did a research
Yeah.
paper and I did, like started talking to people around around the university about colorism. When I felt about that
Mm.
thing in education, I started Project Leap, um, and for volunteers. And now, when I felt this about as a young professional who is facing this incongruence between purpose
Mm-hmm.
and way of life and communication versus organizational systems, um, I just started something. I woke up on the Wednesday, I recorded myself, and I put a video out on LinkedIn about young leaders' careers, YLC. And this is,
Yeah. That was really
yeah.
heartfelt. I have
Yeah, I
heard it.
mean, I mean,
That
it
was
was,
really
I
heartfelt.
woke up. What I missed telling you was I woke up, I cried, and then I shot the video. So I woke up, I cried, and I
Okay.
shot the video, and I put it on LinkedIn. And I was like,
All
you know
right.
what? Like, surely there's people
Wow.
like me, or even if there's not
Hmm.
nobody like me, this is what I'm going through, and it may become relevant in 10, 20, whatever years. And so I put it out there, and I was like, look, this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going through it? How have you dealt with it? Let's help each other out. And that's really given me a sense of purpose and
Mm-hmm.
direction to kind of say, it went from me being isolated in this experience to just within a week
Mm-hmm.
meeting at least 20 people who have gone through the same thing. Because
That's
once you put
amazing.
your story out, it attracts other people, and it also attracts you to
Yeah.
speak to other people, like more people outside of my first connection in a LinkedIn sense, right? Second
Mm-hmm.
and third
Yeah.
connection are reaching out to me and saying it resonated. And I'm like, why did it resonate? Tell me more. And people are telling me
Mm.
their stories, and I'm like, wow, right? And it's given
Yeah.
me a real sense of purpose that this is what I want to do. This is how I want to help people, right? And
Because we would, I mean, it requires more people like you, because a lot of people, when they see that, they're able to resonate with somebody, there's something out there that I can talk to, because not everybody is so vocal that they'll come out on LinkedIn or on social media and talk about it. So we
yeah,
need a lot of such platforms where people can talk about it and they can feel safe that they are not alone in this journey. So it's an incredible
yeah,
work that you're doing with young leadership careers
yeah.
that I would also want you to talk and elaborate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I just have to say there, like, I don't think we need more resources. I think we just need to utilize what is in front of us, right? Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has got a link. Everybody's got an Instagram. Everybody's got a TikTok. It's what we choose to do with it, right?
Yeah.
There's other people who are very vocal about their experiences,
Hmm.
and they've been doing amazing, in terms of reaching out to people, even making it a business for themselves.
Hmm.
So and that's commendable. So it's what we choose to do with it and who we choose to interact with, right? For YLC, the idea is that I want in few years' time that any
Hmm.
young leader who's entering the workplace, they come to YLC and they're like, what do I do, right? What I'm doing in the background is I'm
Okay.
creating a starter guide. When you start fresh in a company as a young leader, what is it
Mm-hmm.
that you have to get done? What is it that you have to know? And what is it that you have to create for
Hmm.
yourself, like a template to get a good start in a company? And it's based on multiple people's experiences of having bad starts as young
Hmm.
leaders in organizations, right? So I want people to come to YLC when they're young leaders entering organizations to say,
Hmm.
how do we, like, what do I do, right? Or if they're facing a
Right.
specific situation, how do they deal with it? The second thing I want
Hmm.
to do is, and I really
Yeah.
believe this, and this may be a little out there, but I think organizations as a system and as a word will cease to exist in a while, right? The more people have multiple sources of income, the more we have uh, like the concept of the job doesn't exist anymore. And Stuart Carr from New Zealand, in Massey University, he talks about it a lot, right? It's called multi-braided jobs, where
Mm-hmm.
you're having multiple sources of income. So the concept of the job won't
Yeah.
exist anymore.
Okay.
And people will have multiple jobs. Organizations won't look the same. But I really believe that
Mm-hmm.
organizations will cease to exist simply because they won't innovate at a quick enough pace. It is the scale ups and the startups that will innovate at a quick enough pace who will become our future employers, right?
Right.
And it is their operating model, it is their systems that
Mm.
I want to help shape, because they are in this prime state where they're still shaping their systems. And we can make the systems inclusive
Mm.
this time, and we can make the systems fluid this
Right.
time, instead of trying to change archival systems that actually give you a lot of stress and trauma if you're even trying to change them,
Mm.
or give you a lot of lip service.
Yeah. That's a commendable vision that you are going on with. And so, how you mentioned that definitely startups have their way to now build a culture around it where, they keep these things in their mind while they are building their organization. What do you think, since you are also working and you have worked in one of the top MNCs, what do you think, how are how will they able to, or how are they embracing the younger generation and the kind of values, the kind of environment that they have been
Hmm.
brought up in, the kind of work ethics that they have, the kind of passion they have towards different things. How are organizations
Hmm.
embracing them, or how can?
Yeah. I think how they're embracing them, I haven't seen a single organization, and maybe I need to look harder,
Mm,
that is doing it well, right?
okay.
So we created hiring systems where it doesn't discriminate against age or years of experience,
Mm,
or all of that. That's great, but that's not where the journey ends. That's where the journey starts, right?
yeah.
For your career, that's where it starts. So how do you actually utilize the personal brand and the values and the sense of social impact that young people bring? How do you utilize them? And I think that will require a lot of, it will just require guts. That's it. And organizations that are
Mm,
gutsy, and I have to
yeah.
say, no matter what people think about it, but
Mm,
Tesla, Alphabet, these are all
yeah.
gutsy organizations. They are, right? Good or bad,
Yeah.
but they are gutsy. And you'll see young people actually having a lot of autonomy, not just because we give you a small room and you can be as autonomous in that room as you want. No, autonomy in the sense that we will actually value it and take it forward
Mm,
and take your ideas forward. So even in India, I think there's
mm,
Reliance Industries, and they have a lot of offshoots of innovation startup kitchens and things like that. You've got your Bosch
okay.
kitchen startup with Bosch in Germany, and one of my good friends
Okay.
heads that. So I think these are really nice
Right.
ways. Organizations are always going to be for profit. And there's
Of
nothing
course.
wrong with it,
Yeah.
right? So how
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
leverage what people are making available to you to become more profitable, but then also
Mm-hmm.
create some congruency in what you say and what you
Right.
do, right? And I
Absolutely.
don't think that that's going to be solved. And that's actually one of the reasons why YLC exists, is to get to a stage where we can tell people what we need,
Mm.
because we've never had this conversation as young leaders, right? We've always had conversations that as young leaders, how do you start a social enterprise or a startup
Yeah.
or quit your job? That's great, but that's for 1% of the population.
Mm.
Not all of us can quit
Of
jobs,
course.
and by the time organizations changes, we'll be dinosaurs. So we need to sustain our livelihoods while we are in this
Right.
change as well, right? So it's how do we do that? And I don't have all
Hmm.
the answers. Everybody else together will have all
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
answers. Um, all I can do is
And I
bring these
love
people together.
that through YLC you are trying to bring this conversation up and figure out the answer towards how can we make it a better place, and how can we connect as a community and help each other, aid each other, and bring the best out of ourselves. One thing that you wish more people knew about Gen Z in the workplace.
Wow. This was a key insight for me. Um,
Mm.
and I'd like to share that is
Mhm.
let me do two. Is that okay? I'll do two. I'll do one
Of course,
philosophical and one fun.
go ahead.
Right? So the philosophical one is when boomers and millennials came into organizations, they came with technical expertise
Hmm.
and then they took years to build people skills, strategy skills, abstract skills, communication
Mhm.
skills. And that's how the systems were
Right.
built. That you come in with technical capability, we'll keep promoting you and we'll support you to build all these
Hmm.
other things, right? The big switch is that Gen Z is coming in the other way around. They're coming in with your people skills, abstract skills, strategy skills, your
Right.
resilience, and all that. And they need you to help them build technical
Mm.
capability. So create systems that help them progress with these skills and build their technical capability at the same time,
Hmm.
or their expertise at the same time, or their
Yeah.
working world at the same time. Don't expect them to work under the
Mm.
same system and not get frustrated. That's a philosophical one, and I think that was a very key sort of switch off mindset for me, because you don't see yourself as
Right.
a problem anymore. It's the system. The fun one is I bet not all of us want to be TikTokers. Please stop saying that about us. I love people who are doing that. I love people who are influencers, but we are all not the same. We are
Oh
not
no.
all wanting to quit and travel. Some of us just want to work and we're very passionate
Yeah.
about it. So please meet your next Gen Z and actually ask them what they want to do in life. And I bet you'll be surprised when they say we don't
Oh
just want
my
to
God,
dance
I've heard this
and travel.
a lot.
We would love it. We would love it, but
No,
hey,
we
hey,
are well, we are way more about we are way more than that just being a TikTok influencer or any
yeah,
social media influencer because it's how people,
I bet.
it's not just our generation. I think it's about people stereotyping and generalizing and putting everybody in a box. It's about individuals, and it has always been about individuals. And now it has become more and more out
Yeah,
there that we we our generation or
hmm.
the young generation wants to be, they look beyond a certain point, just beyond um, earning a basic income and just surviving for ourselves, for as an just an individual. We are looking beyond ourselves, and that is how the future is going to be. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's incredible that you mentioned actually about
Even as Gen Z, right? Like, if people want to put us in a
it.
box, we also put people into boxes. I'm going to say it outright. Gen Z is not like angels. We don't have to put any generation on a pedestal and say they were better than the other. It's not a competition between generation.
Of course, no.
Also, you can't stop it. Can you stop you can't stop it, right? So instead of
Absolutely.
competing with each other and saying
Yeah.
we are better than the other and the other generation saying we are better than you because we've done X, Y, and Z, I've been on this planet
No.
25 years. You get what you get, and that's a
Hmm.
fact of life.
Yeah,
Um,
every generation
I
comes
can't
with
change
their
it.
own pros and cons, with their own characters,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's basically how the environment has influenced them and the kind of
yeah,
environment they have been grown up, and that's about it.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
builds.
That's literally it. So everybody, please study psychology, because that will help you in life, and then do something amazing with it, which is non-traditional. That's what we want.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We do want like just a little bit of change here and there where people are more aware, people are not ignorant, as you have mentioned in the whole conversation, and a little more empathetic, a little more
Mm.
caring.
And a little more uncomfortable with disrespect and bullshit
Mm.
because if you're comfortable with ignorance, then it's actually we no longer live in a generation where not doing the wrong thing
Mm.
is good enough. not doing the right
Yeah.
thing is bad, right? You're actively
Hmm.
contributing even if you're passive to the wrong thing. So stop being comfortable with bullshit, right? Whatever generation you are, how
Yeah.
many ever years you've left or lived on the planet, you can't get complacent. Like, where's the fun
That
in
is
that?
so true. And Sakshi, what an tremendous, amazing, insightful conversation I've had with you. I definitely, I mean, every time I talk to you, there's something new that I learn. There's something new I learn about everything about you, about things that is going around, about your new researches that you have been up to, about the new, projects that you're working on. I love our conversations. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And am pretty sure that it's not just me, but all our listeners would learn so much from you and would have so many takeaways from you. So thank you so much for sharing so openly and so your personal stories and so vulnerability around it because that is what we need. That is what the need of the hour.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a brilliant host. You were splendid. So thanks for having me. I'm sure we'll chat again.
Of course.
And I just hope you keep getting like amazing hosts and guests on your podcast. Like that'll be so good. I look forward to listening.
Don't forget to follow and share the podcast so that you never miss an episode. Leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your reviews help us to reach out to more listeners and continue to bring the latest insights from the field of business psychology. Thank you for joining us on this journey. This is your host, Kritika Kashyap, signing off. Stay curious, my friends.